Hey guys, September 2nd, 2025, here with your after hours recap. So, just quickly, gold is phenomenal. Beautiful base that this thing built for a few months. Really started to break out. I would not be a chaser of a commodity ever. Commodities are best to be bought off of ascending moving averages. This thing was probably buyable on the 26th, but as it relates to all the gold miners, right, these things had beautiful setups. If you look at something like Nugget, in two spots, really on 8-4 and 821 or 822 looked like pretty good spots to get involved. Up here, you're kind of just asking for it, in particular on the commodity side. Really nice move in after hours for Google. I guess they don't have to sell Google Chrome, so that is nice to see. Apple, obviously, a bit of a push with it. And, it's just been a little bit of a tricky environment. Stocks, they gapped down today after a down day on Friday. And some things are acting more poor than others, right? Prior leader, something like GEV, a bit more follow through to the downside, and then something like TEM, for instance, a gap down and then just an all day ramp. And even on Friday this thing was showing relative strength, and then again you kind of hold it over the weekend, you get the market rolling over in the morning, you open back up, shake some people out, and then ripping all day long as the market is bouncing. So nice job for Tempest. There are names out here that are acting and looking pretty dang good. TEM being one of them, showing awesome relative strength while the market, is going lower. ANET's another one of those, showing awesome relative strength these past 2 days while the market's been going lower. AppLovin, Bros, a Hut, a Rocket Lab, IREN, you name it. There are just names out here that continue to act well, and that's fantastic. Again, this couldn't chase price on something like this. I'm hopeful that Nvidia can get its shit together. If it does, obviously a name like CRDO, a name like ALAB, a name like AMD, off of the 50-day today. I mean, just very nice. We'll see if it can kind of bounce from here, give us a little higher low, or just a reclaim of the 20-day. Could be pretty interesting going forward. But ultimately they're not making it very easy. Buying pullbacks against ascending moving averages still seems to be the ticket. There seems to be an appetite out here for continuously buying the dip. With that said, the NASDAQ continues to be a crowded long, and it still continues to be outperformed by the IWM, right? The market goes up, IWM outperforms, market goes down, QQQ loses more. It's just is what it is. And I don't really know when that's going to change. I think it has everything to do with positioning. I've talked about it before. But silver, really nice. Gold, really nice. Some crude oil stocks, pretty dang good. You had a pretty steep sell-off this morning in crude oil, but you got bought right back up today. And then, if you can kind of look at a chart like Dino, this one's been acting really well from this breakout. I mean, just up every single day. CVX, obviously, it's got a humongous weekly base. Almost, expecting this thing personally to continue higher, and nobody's really talking about crude oil. There's like nobody long crude oil. People aren't talking about it. They hate it. Nothing to it. And crude oil just seemingly higher every single day. Again, it's pretty sloppy on the weekly, but it looks like it's being accumulated. We are at basically the highest spot on this weekly chart since we've been, even throughout that initial oil run-up, which we had a few weeks back. I want to say about 2 months ago. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of the market. There's plenty of names and plenty of merchandise that I can see myself wanting to own, whether it's something like Baba or something like PDD, something like Bros, something like AppLovin, something like ANET. There's just a lot of good looking merchandise still, so I'm not going to complain about that. I still think that small caps is probably the place to be over the NASDAQ. Again, just based on positioning. I don't have some big expectation for the NASDAQ. September is a seasonally weak month. I think everybody knows that, and that's probably my only problem with saying that out loud, is that September seasonally weak. Everybody knows that. So does that end up really playing out to fruition? I don't know. I am still long ARK, and I don't really hate the way this thing acted today. Yes, we've had multiple pullbacks, but every time it's held, I'm still long CCL. I'm still short Roblox, and I did try to take a little short today in Palantir. It just didn't really close the way I was hoping. A lot of stocks, kind of ramped in the morning and then closed fairly weak. The market did kind of keep pushing there in the afternoon, and Palantir was just, digesting. So I was like, my stop was high of day, effectively Friday's high, should I say. So I just held it, and we'll see kind of what happens tomorrow. Again, I'm not really expecting the market to have some kind of a big gap up tomorrow, so I'll just kind of deal with this short in the morning. But there is tons of nice looking merchandise, so I'm trying to stay positive. I'm trying to get myself repositioned in the market. Ethereum was the one thing that I thought was fairly weak today, and obviously you see the news out of BMNR, which is Tom Lee's effectively Bitcoin treasury company, or the one that he heads. And Ethereum's crowded, super crowded on the long side. Bitcoin not so much, and Bitcoin did outperform Ethereum today. Ethereum kind of gapped up, closed on the lows, and I would suspect that Ethereum, if the market has any sort of pressure, Ethereum could easily go back to 4,000, potentially lower, and then we'll see what happens from there. But really not trying to be negative on the market. I do like the digestion that we're kind of going through. The market's just ebbing and flowing, going sideways, really not doing a whole lot of anything. I'm not here to call a market top on the NQ, but I am noticing the digestion that's taking place, and this sideways action, it's just completely tearing up the undisciplined. So that, from my perspective, that looks pretty good. And I don't want to buy relative strength when the market's going down. I want to buy stocks that have been showing relative strength when the market starts to turn back up. So put together your list of stocks that had been showing some strength. We just covered a few of them, and I'm sure there are plenty more if you go ahead and scan through the market. So keep an open mind, and we'll see really what happens. There has been no real power in a name like Microsoft, which is a bit of an issue, right? You've kind of been just trickling lower ever since earnings, and you're starting to live below the 50. I don't really want to see price living below the 50. It could just be a whole lot like CrowdStrike. I can't tell you how many messages I saw on Thursday. Oh my God, cybersecurity, it's back on, bullish engulfing. And while that's fine, this was a beautiful candle after earnings. Friday and today effectively gave all of it back. Really didn't even bother trying to close back at Friday's lows. So not making anything of it. I don't really know if this is just going to bounce back at the 200 tomorrow, but please be a little bit more cautious on, whether it be some of these cyber names or tech in general. We're still crowded there. There has been some nice action after earnings, whether it be something like MDB or even something like Snowflake. But again, Snowflake today, nothing truly special. You get these gap ups, and then you get a bunch of nothing afterwards. Kind of like BWXT, right? It's like you get the gap up, and then you just go nowhere. And you could look around at all of the earnings gappers. For every one earnings gapper, you've had two earnings gap downs, and then for every of those earnings gappers, they've effectively, outside of like Reddit and ALAB and Corning and a handful of others, you've gone nowhere. So, listen to the market and listen to what it's trying to tell you. Probably very few of us, myself included, own gold, and it's the one thing that built a beautiful base. And we talked about today, and I kind of did the whole tongue-in-cheek of what I mean for things to digest. Gold is exactly what I mean when things digest. They go up, and then they go up, they go sideways. They go up and they go sideways. They go up and it builds sideways. It goes up and it goes sideways. It goes up, it builds a humongous base. Out of a humongous base that's not crowded, and it probably people are under allocated to it, it just then really goes higher and higher and higher and higher. And people want to, call the top on gold, but the base looks phenomenal. 3,600, probably wouldn't be too surprised if we're at 3,700, 3,800, here pretty dang soon. This seems to be an environment where gold is thriving. So, I'm not going to call top on it, not when the gold miners are some of the best performing assets in the entirety of the market. So, we'll just take it one day at a time, track relative strength, trade relative strength when the market's turning back up. Just track it when the market's going down or when it's choppy. Probably my best suggestion. But there are still a bunch of names that look great, so I'm not going to complain. Super happy to be back on the desk. I look forward to seeing you guys bright and early for pre-market prep. Cheers.